During the May Day Golden Week holiday in mainland China, large numbers of tourists poured into Hong Kong. Ham Tin Wan became packed with people, and the chaos returned. Litter was strewn everywhere, food scraps clogged the wash basins in public toilets, and tourists smoked on a beach where smoking was originally prohibited. A Now News reporter went on site and interviewed a male tourist from Guangxi who was smoking in front of the camera while speaking. He had been fined 3,000 Hong Kong dollars for dumping food scraps, and he called the rules ridiculous, saying, "I paid the money, isn't that enough?" How bold he was. According to the online media Pulse HK, mainland netizens also paid attention to this arrogant smoker and criticized him on Weibo. Some called him a giant baby, said he had no manners, and he's annoying wherever he goes. Two comments were especially notable. If this isn't a locust, then what is a locust? And there's a reason we get discriminated against when we go out. This video discusses the issue of ethnic discrimination. Locust or not, let's differentiate. It's surprising that mainland netizens call the arrogant smoker a locust. Fortunately, there's no evidence that the commenter came from Hong Kong, otherwise he might get arrested under certain law or by certain department. Looking back nearly 20 years ago, Hong Kong attracted large numbers of mainland Chinese and cross-border parallel traders, who bought food and daily necessity in bulk to meet the huge demand on the mainland. Hong Kong people lamented that the North District were the worst hit areas. Daily goods were swept off the shelves, roads and transport were packed to the point of suffocation, and pedestrians had their feet run over by suitcases. Some people therefore used the term locust to describe mainlanders, meaning that they arrived in swamps and stripped the place bare wherever they went. Even now, some still believe this is an act of dehumanization, comparable to Nazi Germany calling Jews rats and cockroaches, or Hutu extremists calling Tutsis cockroaches. I once had a distant relative, a Vietnamese Chinese who later immigrated to Canada and knew little about Hong Kong current affairs. During the years when parallel trading was rampant in the North District, he visited Hong Kong and was shocked by the mainland Chinese purchasing power, with none of the restraints of racial discrimination or stigmatization. He bluntly said, "They are like locusts." The term locust can easily evoke extreme human associations, but those who first used it were mostly grasping the common feature between locusts and people who ignore local rules and sweep up goods in a frenzy. This is still a long way from the cruelty of Nazis and Hutu extremists. Now that the word is being used by mainland netizens, this makes people wonder, by Hong Kong's legal and enforcement standards nowadays, whether it might count as incitement. Netizens also said that Chinese people are discriminated against abroad for a reason. This needs clarification. Most Hong Kongers and foreigners don't discriminate against mainland tourists. In October 2013, actor Anthony Wong gave an interview on RTHK's Saturday Arena, discussing tensions between Hong Kong and mainland people. He said that discrimination should be distinguished from looking down on someone, and his words are worth quoting. Nowadays, people casually talk about discrimination. In the past, we didn't use this word much. We would say we look down on you. For instance, if you're poor, have a lowly occupation, or behave in a crude way, I may look down on you. First, you must make clear whether it's because I'm mixed race, which is not a status I chose. If you look down on me because of that, then you are discriminating against me, because this is not something I made myself. But if I spit everywhere, swear all the time, break the rules, cut the queue, steal, and behave in a despicable way, then you can look down on me. That is not discrimination. It is simply being someone people should look down on. Discrimination means treating others differently for irrelevant or inappropriate reasons. When people face tourists who damage the countryside or public facilities, local looking down on them is called contempt or disdain, not discrimination. Statistically, it's unclear what proportion of mainland tourists in Hong Kong engage in conduct that violates public morals. If well-behaved tourists are lumped together as tourists unwelcome by locals, That is indeed unfair. But Hong Kongers have encountered so many mainland tourists behaving badly and provoking resentment that the incidents are frequent. To assume at the outset that such visitors will cause trouble may seem like a safer way to protect oneself. It's like hiking in a forest and glimpsing a giant bear in the distance. One knows that not every bear attacks humans, and not every aggressive bear bites everyone it sees, but the wise move is to assume the bear is dangerous and keep one's distance. Accordingly, there's a reason we get discriminated against when we go out. Contains both a point that needs clarification, namely that a good deal of the attitude from outside mainland China is contempt rather than discrimination, and the point that is correct. This kind of discrimination is exactly what mainlanders are dragged into, caused by poor tourists like that arrogant smoker. Don't misuse discrimination, a concern for Chinese people everywhere. It seems that in some situations, Hong Kongers can say with righteous confidence that they do not discriminate against mainland Chinese. And even if they do, there are reasons and circumstances that make it understandable. At the same time, Hong Kong people, Taiwanese people, and people of other countries and ethnicities should all stay alert not to misuse the label of discrimination. Recently, online, especially on threads, I've often seen Chinese people saying they were discriminated against abroad. The situations they describe include locals emphasizing that they are Chinese, or hearing foreigners say they dislike Chinese food in the workplace. These are everyday matters unrelated to institutions, and the language used does not clearly contain racial slurs. I don't know what the posters saw in the other person's expression or heard in their tone, but they treat this as major events, and some commenters even encourage them to report the matter to HR and claim racial discrimination. If one follows these Quixote's instructions, it could immediately silence locals and even get them fired. But that would not eliminate the disdain in others' hearts. The feel that Chinese people are overly sensitive, lack sense of humor, and are best avoided. Anyone who leaves home and always carries the warning sign, "I will be discriminated against," helps nothing to improve themselves, and it's only natural for others to look down on them. Hong Kong economist Kevin Choi studied in the United States. He recalled that he had been once treated in ways that, by today's standards, would count as racial discrimination. But this mostly took the form of jokes about his Chinese background. Some even tried to challenge him a little. Choi didn't mind. Sometimes he even joked along with them. Over time, locals saw that he had a certain level of ability, came to regard him as one of their own, and no longer used the Chinese label to say anything. There is also a historical event worth learning from, the Sakai incident in the first year of Japan's Meiji era. In December 1868, 13 French sailors landed in Sakai, which the Japanese government hadn't opened to foreigners, and were killed by samurai from the Tosa domain, triggering a diplomatic crisis. The French minister, Léon Rouge, demanded the execution of the guard commanders and the murderers. The new Meiji government lacked the strength to maneuver with Western powers, and decided to settle the matter by sacrificing the Tosa samurai and paying compensation. The Tosa guard commanders, together with 18 members chosen by lot, was ordered to commit seppuku. They firmly believed that the French had violated the rules by landing first, and that the guards had done nothing wrong. But since someone had to take the responsibility for the country, they had no choice but to shoulder the burden. In February 1869, the seppuku punishment was carried out at Myokokuchi, with Rouge and Japanese officials overseeing the execution. The first to perform seppuku was Minaura Inokichi, aged 25. He first shouted curses at the French peasant, then took up his wakizashi, the short sword carried by samurai, thrust it into the lower left side of his abdomen, and cut horizontally to the right. He even intended to pull out his intestines and throw them to Rouge. Beside each person performing seppuku stood a samurai acting as kaishaku, whose role was to relieve the sufferer's pain. Once the act had been carried out, the kaishaku would behead him with a katana, the sword of medium length. At the time, the kaishaku was Mabuchi Momotaro. He was so nervous that when he swung his sword, he only struck the upper part of the neck. Mino Ula ordered him to calm down and do it properly. Mabuchi swung again, but only cut halfway through. Mino Ula's head tilted forward, but it didn't fall. Mino Ula shouted, "I'm not dead yet! Cut! Cut!" On the third blow, Mabuchi finally severed the head from the body. Hosh was already deeply unsettled by this point. The execution continued, and the second man, 24-year-old Nishimura Heiji, remained composed. But Mabuchi was still tense and beheaded him before he had finished the seppuku. Nishimura's head flew 5 meters away and landed on the ground. This continued until 11 men had performed seppuku, after which Hosh and his entourage, dazed and shaken, left without saying goodbye. The shock of this scene spread through Western society, and at the time even made some Westerners think that Japanese samurai either slashed people down or committed seppuku. International politics is complicated. Whether the samurai's heroic seppuku immediately brought about a great rejuvenation of the Yamato people, or how much it affected Western powers' attitudes towards Japan, are all questions worth discussing. What's more obvious is that Japan showed an unyielding spirit and was not someone to be bullied easily. In the following years, it was not oppressed so severely by Western gunboats, and more than a century later, it needs not promote a grievance-driven nationalism the way the country across the strait does. Choi's experience and the Sakai incident together offer a lesson. Instead of hoping to eliminate discrimination, it's better to make others see you in a new light. Spending all day and night obsessing over which words count as discrimination and which action count as differential treatment only debilitates a group's mentality and creates traps that make them deserve contempt. If this continues for long enough, it may truly produce discrimination, just as some Hong Kongers view mainland tourists by first assuming they will disrupt order. Not everyone needs to earn a doctorate like Choi, and there is no need to imitate Japanese samurai and commit seppuku. Ethnic Chinese people have always had the hard-working spirit of speak less, act more. Once merit accumulates over time, others will come to respect this group. If you have any idea or like this video, please comment, like, subscribe and share. I'll be grateful if you support me on Patreon or Substack, making us go even further. See you on the next video.